This conference will now be recorded.
All right. So, as many of you heard, the very sick news this morning about the ICC, the Kangaroo Court of the International, I don't know what they are even, right? Criminal Court, right? That they've issued arrest warrants for both Netanyahu and Gallant, and they don't do that for anyone in Iran who's been sending hundreds of missiles at Israel. But of course, they do that, and of course, he's being sued for whatever. It's a big mess, and it is indicative of the craziness of the world that we are living in, and so once again, Rabbi Joshua Flug put together, this is a response that was written a long time ago by Rav Shaul Yisroeli. And this was following in 1953. There was a terror incident, and the IDF responded with Operation Shoshana. Troops led by Ariel Sharon launched an attack on the town of Kibbutz, and civilians were killed, women and children. This led to widespread condemnation in the UN and elsewhere, right? Certainly, during this past year, Israel has been held to a standard that no one else has ever been held to. Israel has exceeded those standards, but nevertheless has been constantly criticized along the way. As a response to Kibbutz, Rav Shaul Yisroeli wrote a lengthy essay analyzing various grounds which might or might not have justified the operation in Kibbutz. Now, it's important to realize that that was a very different situation. Kibbutz, there were no specific terrorists that they were targeting. That was an operation that was meant to serve as a deterrent for future attacks, right? That is not what's happening over here. Israel is going after the terrorists, and there are many civilians that are being killed along the way, right? That is the fault, as many have pointed out, of Hamas for embedding themselves and hiding behind the civilian population. And actually, the civilian to fighter ratio that has been killed in Gaza is wildly less than any other case that has happened in modern urban warfare. That is how low the civilian rate is compared to the terrorist rate. So over here, we are not looking to punish anybody. We are looking to make sure that what happened October 7th, al pi derech hateva, to the best of our control, God runs the world, but to the best of our control, it will not be able to be replicated. Similarly, you have all these useful idiots who were there up in arms about Lebanon, right? For the past year, starting October 8th, or even October 7th, before Israel even began our incursion into Gaza, and Hezbollah is shooting missiles into Israel, and you have 60, 70,000 Israelis who have to leave their homes, right? No one went to the street for that. Oh, it all started when Israel retaliated. That's how right? That's when it all started, when Israel responded. Now all of a sudden you have all this. So it's interesting. On one of the far too many WhatsApp groups that I'm a part of, so somebody posted that an Israeli was traveling and needed to rent a car, and went into the rent-a-car agency, and the next available agent that he went to the window had Muhammad on his nameplate, and he was, not wishing to publicize that he was Israeli, but when you're renting your car, you need to show your license, and right, so therefore it became very apparent that this person was an Israeli. Muhammad looked at him and said, "I'm Lebanese. Thank you for kicking Hezbollah's you-know-what." And he got a free upgrade on his rent-a-car. Yes. So you never know. Let's put it like that. However, Rabbi Yisroel again wrote a lengthy tshuva, and we're going to pick parts of that to discuss the response and the ethics of fighting terrorists and what can be done, what should not be done, and different precedents that we have for this. So let us begin. Let me pull this up 1 second. There we go. Okay. So the pasuk says in Bereshit, this is right after the flood. Right after the flood, Noah's Ark, etc. The pasuk says, Bereshit 9:6. We have it both in Hebrew and in English, and almost everything is both Hebrew and English. Once again, kudos to Sefaria.org, who do a tremendous service for people like me trying to put together source sheets, and for many people looking to study. Shofech dam ha'adam ba'adam. One who spills the blood ha'adam of a person ba'adam. It seems a little bit awkward, right? In a person, of a person, by a person, through a person. But one who spills the blood of a man by man, damo yishafech, his blood will be spilled. Why? Ki b'tselem Elokim asa et ha'adam. Because in the image of God, so to speak, humankind was made, and therefore one cannot spill the blood of another person. Okay, so an argument might be made that even though civilians might not be involved in directly supporting the act of terror, but these terrorists are their representatives. Certainly, if anybody saw the clip of in UCLA where a woman who was a hostage who was released, right, is talking to one of the leaders of the pro-Hamas, right. So, yeah, but she was absolutely amazing, right. Unfortunately, I felt she was still speaking to the narrative that these are our friends, and with just a little more dialogue, we can get there. Yeah, 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 yeah. But she spoke about how when she was abducted and taken, paraded through the streets and dragged through the streets, how there was no one there who was speaking up for her. No, right? Everyone was participating in the spectacle. I remember very early on in the war, Douglas Murray, who's become one of my favorite people on the planet, right? Douglas Murray was being interviewed, and someone said, "Well, surely you can't hold, you can't hold all of the civilians, responsible. You can't say all of them agreed." He said, "Look, I can't speak about all of them, but if we could say that there was absolutely no pushback, and there was 100% of civilians participating, celebrating, giving out candies, throwing things at the people who were taken hostage. If in those areas that we saw there was full participation, then we could pretty much assume that that is the general consensus of opinion there of the civilians." So maybe you'll say that these terrorists are acting as representatives of the people. Now, we have a general rule of a shliach. A shliach is my agent who can perform acts on my behalf. A person can send someone as an agent to a woman, and he can give that woman a ring and say to her, Hariyat Mukudeshet, behold, you are betrothed with this ring to so-and-so, the guy who sent me. And if this woman accepts that ring, then she is married to the person who sent this agent to marry her on his behalf. Shlucho shel Adam Kumoto. A person's agent is considered to be themselves, as if they themselves did it. Okay? So therefore, even though we have a general rule, ein shliach lidvar avera, if I send someone to do a sin and the person does the sin, that is not reflect back onto the sender. It's not as if the sender did it. It's as if the sender did the marriage. It's not as if the sender did the sin. There we have another rule, which is divrei harav, divrei hatalmud, divrei mi shomim, meaning I told you to do it. God told you not to do it. Why'd you listen to me? You should have listened to God. If you were listening to me, you weren't really listening to me. You were deciding to do it for yourself. And therefore you need to take ownership on that. But the question can be raised that if these terrorists are acting as the agents of the general population, so then maybe even the general population, in the case of Kibya, or wherever it might be, will be held, do also have the same din, the same status as the terrorists themselves. And actually there is a medrash that seems to support this idea when it comes to Bnei Noach. Keep in mind, this is in Bereshit. This is in the book of Genesis. This is Noach. This is before the Torah was given. This is not the law for the Jews or exclusively for the Jews. This goes into the category of what we call Sheva Mitzvot Bnei Noach, the 7 Noahide commandments that apply to all of humankind. So the Medrash over there says, and then we have both in Hebrew and English, Medrash Bereshit Rabbah 34, Shofech dam ha'adam ba'adam damo yishafech, one who sheds the blood of man by man, his blood shall be shed. Again, that word, the second ba'adam, is a little bit awkward. What do we learn from that? Am Rabbi Chanina, Kulan, Kehilchot Bnei Noach, all of these laws, right, all this fits into the laws of the Noahide mitzvot, be'ed echad. Whereas by Jewish law, you need to have 2 witnesses. There, shofech dam ha'adam ba'adam, with just 1 person. Meaning there, by Noahide laws, you don't need 2 witnesses. Ba'adam, 1 witness will suffice. B'dayan echad, right? With us, we need 3 judges for any case, and for life-death matters, we need 23 judges. By Noahide laws, no. Shovech dam ha'adam ba'adam, by a man. All you need is 1 dayan. Below edim, you don't need to have witnesses. Below hatra, and you don't need to have warning. Al yidei shaliach, it can be done even. Responsibility will be even if it was done by an agent, by a shliach who did on your behalf. Al yidei ubarim. We're also going to learn out from this verse that killing, according to the laws of Bnei Noach, killing, aborting, killing an embryo could be considered murder. Let's hear. How do we see all this? Shofech dam adam be'adam echad. If a person spills the blood of a person, how do we know about this? Ba'adam echad, all by 1 person. Damo yishafech, his blood will be spilled, which means no witnesses. Below edim, ubelow hatra. Shofech dam ha'adam, damo yishafech al yidei shliach. And also we can see from this verse that if you send someone else to do it, you're responsible. How? Shofech dam ha'adam, if you spill the blood of a person, ba'adam, meaning al yidei adam, through someone else, through my proxy, through my agent. Damo yishafech, you're responsible. Lastly, al yidei ubarim, shovech dam ha'adam ba'adam. If you spill the blood of a person inside a person, which person is inside a person that I could spill that person's blood? That's referring to a fetus. Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Shimon Omer, af hachoker. He says even if one strangles a person, meaning there is no blood involved. Shovech dam ha'adam, he spilled the blood of a person, ba'adam, inside that person. You cause an internal bleeding of sorts or mishap of sorts, but there was no actual spilling of the blood. So these are all halachot, all laws that the Medrash is learning out from this seemingly awkward extra word of shofech dam ha'adam ba'adam, right? To spill the blood of a person, ba'adam, by one person, by one witness, by one judge, in a person, by a proxy, etc. So looking at that medrash, one might say, okay, so therefore they are sending these terrorists as their representatives. They are there. They are the shahid. They are the holy ones, the martyrs who are representing all of us. And if only we would have the honor, but they're doing it on our behalf. So maybe they're all responsible amongst B'nai Noach. However, we don't base halachot on medrash. When it comes to halachot, we have our Shulchan Aruch, our code of Jewish law, and that is extracting the halachot from Maimonides and other such luminaries that we had who extracted the practical halacha. And what does Maimonides say? That's the next one. Rambam, Laws of Murder, chapter 2, halachot 1 and 2. On our source sheet, we're still on page 1. Rambam, Laws of Murder, 2:1-2. There he says as follows, both in Hebrew and in English. Kol hahoreg chaveiro biyado. Anyone who kills his friend, some friend, biyado, with his hand. Yonshiko b'sayif. He hit him with a sword. O be'evan hamamita, or with a stone, one that is enough to kill. O shichanako, or he strangled him. Ad shemet, until he died. O sarfo be'esh, burned him. Hoil v'hargo mikol makom hu ba'atzmo, since he did the murder. Hu ba'atzmo, since he himself has killed that person. Harei ze nehrag bebeit din, that person will be killed in a beit din, capital punishment for murder. The Rambam continues, aval hasocher horeg, but if I hire a murderer, la'arog et chaveiro, to kill chaveiro, his colleague, a friend, to kill someone else, o sheshalach avadav, or he sent his servants, v'haraguhu, and he killed him, o shikvato v'inicho, or if he tied him up and left him in front of a lion, v'chayotzi bo, v'haragtu, and the person got killed by the animal, v'chein hahoreg et atzmo, or someone who kills oneself, kol echad me'elu shofech damimhu. Each of these cases, this person is a person who has spilled blood, v'avon hariga biyado, and the sin of murder is on his hands. V'chayev mita lashamayim, there is a heavenly accountability for that. Ve'ein bahen mitat beit din, but not the mita, not an execution by a beit din. So even for a ben Noach to say that the town of Kibya, or to say that the Palestinians in Gaza, they sent these terrorists, it's as if they did it, and therefore they are responsible. That is not a halachic approach. Yes?
When they put him in that one, they claim they left him with that, would that be considered?
Yeah, that could be. Yeah. If the assumption was that he was going to die, and if he would have died, yes, but he didn't die. But we will see another example from Breshit that will come into play in just a moment. Yes,
So
Allah.
if someone hires the killer is responsible and the hirer is not responsible.
The hirer is responsible for spilling blood, and there is a heavenly account, but a beit din will not execute someone for sending a hitman to kill. The beit din, no one's ever off the hook, right? The reason why the beit din will not, that's not considered a capital case against that person.
Is there any way of persecuting something?
So yes, but it's not capital. They would not execute for that. Yes, Steve.
Are we trying to use a civil legal framework to decide what behavior in war should be? Because it seems to me there's a whole different category.
We'll come to that at the
behavior in
end.
war.
We'll come to that at the end. Okay, Steve's making a good point. We touched upon this last week. He touched upon that. We touched upon this last week, that in a war situation, then everything changes drastically, and we'll come to that at the end.
So, take it to a political angle. What about Iran? I mean, we really see it as the planner and the financial, the ideology.
Correct. We're not going after their civilians, right? We're going after those who are actively engaged in trying to kill us, and certainly their facilities, right? Though it can be argued just going after their facilities, like someone shot you, I'm going to take away your gun, right? But however, person get another gun. You need to do more than that. We'll come to that. That's actually going to come more into, right, a wartime situation as we are now. Yes, David.
Have I heard correctly that there is no death penalty in Israel?
Yes.
Present day Israel?
There is a death penalty, but it's not being practiced.
I don't think.
They killed Eichmann. He was the only one they
It's
killed.
legal.
Okay, yeah. Eichmann was hung. Yeah. Okay. There is another point here, another aspect, and that is that perhaps the people are all responsible. Why is that? Because one of the 7 Noahide mitzvot is to have a proper court system and to hold people responsible. If they're not holding these terrorists responsible, so then they are considered party to all of this. So they are responsible for not maintaining their proper society. And therefore they are all culpable. And we find this a very interesting case. The case we know of in the Torah, coming up in a few weeks' time, is when Shem, the son of Hamor, kidnapped Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, of Yaakov, and violated her and held on to her. So we told them, hey, listen, and they came to Yaakov and said, listen, right, anything you ask we'll do. I want to marry her. And they all agreed, Yaakov and all the sons agreed and said to them, listen, if you will circumcise yourselves, then you'll be able to become part of us. We'll marry your daughters, you marry our daughters, etc., etc. And they agreed to do that. The plan was, and when people are acting with you in a horrific, dishonest manner, then you can use deception also to extricate yourself from there. The plan was that once they were in a debilitated state, then they'd be able to go in there, rescue Dinah, and get the heck out of there. However, Shimon and Levi took a different approach. 2 of the brothers went in, and when they were in this debilitated state, they wiped out the whole city of Shechem. Yaakov was very upset with them. Was Yaakov upset with them because what they did was halachically wrong? Was Yaakov upset with them because what they did was dangerous and could endanger all of them going forward? That's the issue that many of the commentators discuss, including the Rambam. Let's look at the next source. Rambam, Laws of Kings, 9:14, both in Hebrew and in English. The Ketzad Mitzuvin Hein al Hadinin. This is talking about the mitzvah b'nei Noach, the Noahide laws, right? So they are commanded al Hadinim. They are commanded to set up a proper court, right? The 7 Noahide mitzvah, the good way to remember it is Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalid, and then the big 3, the 3 capital sins. Aleph, Aver min hachai, not taking a limb from a live animal. Bet, bracha, not cursing God. Gimel, gezela, not stealing. Dalid, din, setting up a proper court system. That's 4. And then you have the big three cardinal sins: adultery or forbidden sexual relations, idolatry, and murder. So here the Rambam is going through these 7 mitzvot. How is it this mitzvah, this commandment of establishing din, courts, laws and courts? Chayav lo shiv dayanin. They have to appoint judges, v'shoftim, and officers, b'chol plach u'plach, in every area. Ladun b'sheish mitzvot eila, to judge and enforce these other 6 of the 7 mitzvot that they have. Ulahazhir ta'am, and to warn the people, to keep them in line. Uben Noach sha'avar al achad misheva mitzvot elu, and a ben Noach who has transgressed any one of these 7, yehareg b'sayaf, is punishable by death. Any one of the 7, meaning including setting up a proper court system. And he says it's because of this all the people of Shechem were liable for death, and Shimon and Levi were justified in that. Sharei Shechem gazal, Shechem stole, kidnapped Dinah. Vehem ra'u, they saw, v'yadu, and knew, v'lo danuhu, and didn't judge him. Uben Noach neherag be'ed echad, as we saw before, Ben Noach is responsible if there's one witness. Dayan echad, if there's one judge. Below hatra, if there's no warning. Va'al pi krovin, even with relatives serving as witnesses. So according to Rambam, that is the reason why Shimon and Levi were justified in taking out the whole city of Shechem. Ramban disagrees with Rambam. Nachmanides disagrees with Maimonides and says if that's the case, that it was the right thing to do, so why was Yaakov upset with them? And if you want to say Yaakov was upset because, well, it caused danger, but we see he cursed their anger repeatedly going through the rest of his life for that they had done what was clearly the wrong thing in his eyes, in his mind. And they were not able, because the people were not able to bring their leader to justice, right? They were under the threat of death, right, if they would try to bring their leader to justice. And so too over here, Rabbi Yisroel says that the general population of the Arabs, the Palestinians, right, are not able. There are many, we hope at least, who are not happy with Hamas and would like to live in peace. We hope there are still some of those left, though those who believe it are becoming smaller and smaller, right? But whatever the case is, right, they are not able to stand up, right? We know for sure that Hamas slaughters their own people also. Sinwar was known as the butcher, not for what he did to Israelis, for what he would do to any Palestinian who would not bow to his will and his view of the future and what needed to be done, right? So therefore, this second aspect, to say that everyone is responsible because they didn't set up proper dinim, proper court systems, proper legal system, that is not a tenable view to condemn everyone as part of that society. Let us go to the third concept, which is that of a rodef. A rodef is someone who is running, chasing after someone else, trying to kill that person. In such a case, what is your, not just allowance, but even your responsibility? Your responsibility is to save the life of the person being pursued, even if it means taking the life of the one who is chasing, right? So one might say that, now, this is not someone who is necessarily willfully pursuing someone else. We'll see in a moment that this applies even to a fetus, even to a baby who is endangering the life of the mother. Let's take a look at that. That's the Talmud, Sanhedrin 72a, once again, Hebrew and English. Amar Rav Huna, and the very first line in Hebrew is on the side A of the page, then you turn over to side B of the page. Amar Rav Huna, Katan, Harodef, if you have a Katan, a minor, who is chasing after someone else to try to kill that person, nitan lahatzilo b'nafsho. It's given to you to save the person being pursued, if necessary, by taking the life of the one pursuing him, even though this person might be a minor. Kasavar, because we are of the opinion, rodef, Eino tzarich hatra'ah. A rodef does not need to be warned. Hey, if you continue to chase after him to try to kill him, I'm going to kill you or you'll be liable for death. No, we typically don't have the time for such a formalized hatra'ah, warning to be given. And therefore, lo shna gadol, velo shna katan. There's no lo shna, no difference if we're dealing with a person who's an adult or dealing with a person who is a katan, who is a minor. Now, there are generally two understandings that are given why we're allowed to kill this person to save the life of that person. One is simply to save this person's life. But there's another idea that's expressed. It's to save the murderer from himself. To save the murderer from doing this horrific act that will give him this eternity of regret and responsibility for this act. So we will save him from that. So in the case of a katan, of a minor is not responsible for his acts. And therefore, in terms of saving him from himself, that's not going to be playing a role. But the only reason that will apply is to save the life of the person who is being pursued. The Gemara continues. We have it here again. Eitive, both Hebrew and English, the middle of on second page, side B of the page that we gave out, right? And there, Eitive Rav Chizda Rav Huna. Rav Chizda brought a disproof, a challenge to Rav Huna. Yatsa Rosho, a woman is giving birth, and her life is in danger. Right? This is a pregnancy, a birth, I should say, that has gone horribly wrong, and her life is in danger. Ein nogenbo. So before the baby's head has emerged, if the mother's life is in danger, then we can go inside the mother, dismember the child in order to be able to extract that child from the womb and save the life of the mother. That we're allowed to do. However, Yatsa Rosho, once the head has emerged, Einoginbo. Now we can't do anything to harm this child that has been born. The head is out. The child is no longer a fetus. The child has been born. We can't do anything to harm that child, to save the life of the mother. We don't push aside one life to save another life. So we're not going to push aside the life of the child to save the life of the mother. Va'amai, Rav Chizda challenges and he asks, but why is that? Rodef who? He's a rodef, he's a pursuer, right? He is killing this mother. So if you, Rav Huna, are correct, that even a minor who is a rodef, who's pursuing and actively taking the life of someone else, you're allowed to kill that person to save the life. So even if the child's head has emerged, he is a katan, he is a rodef. He is actively taking the life of the mother. Why is it that we can't do anything? And the Gemara answers, Shani Hasam. It's different over there. Why? The Mishamaya Karad Fila. Right? The English says it nicely. The fetus is not acting of its own volition and endangering the mother based on its own will, as in the case of a katan who could be a very, very healthy, strapping 12-year-old chasing after someone with a knife or with a gun. But over here, that's not the case. He's not acting of his own volition, not endangering the mother based on his own will. Therefore, it's for the heavens that is pursuing her, meaning this is a situation the heavens are sending to her, and therefore his life may not be taken in order to save the life of the mother. So too, Rabbi Yisroel says, right, in a case of a year where the other civilians are not involved at all, right, then saving the nirdaf is not sufficient cause to kill or neutralize those who are incidentally contributing to help the rodef. Steve, you want to say something before?
Yeah. What if the fetus is not positioned in the normal way and the head is not the first thing to come out?
Breech position.
Yeah. Does the same walk by?
Look, halachic, look, nowadays, so in a case of a breach and an untested pelvis, right? So there are all these different things that we could try to do. There's some segulot that are done, right, to try to get the baby to turn over and the head to become engaged. Actually, with now that we're living in Israel, all the children were born in Israel. With our oldest child, the baby was breech going pretty late, and we received we spoke to a rabbi, and there was a certain segula, certain thing to do that would help the baby to turn, right? Which we did, and the baby's head became engaged, and everything all worked out well. So in other cases, right, it might need to be a C-section. Meaning, in the world today, thankfully, it's very rare that you have a situation where we have to either kill the baby, where the baby must be killed to save the life of the mother. Very, very rare in today's world, right? From a halachic point of view, if that would be the case, and this would apply, if it's still inside, then it could be done. Once the head has emerged, right? So then it could not be done. Yes,
I don't understand how it goes from the case of the fetus to the case of the war, because the difference is in the fetus thing, you're intending to kill the fetus in order to save the mother. But we're not talking about a case where you're intending to kill collateral damage. You're intending to kill the terrorist. The question is, can you kill the terrorist? But
I know that there will, in certain case, I know there'll be collateral damage.
Is relevant. If your intent is relevant.
If I know that there will be collateral damage, then I'm not sure that intent will completely exonerate and exempt that.
But it doesn't. You can't infer from this, which is just saying, can you have full intention to kill the baby to save the mother? That doesn't speak to the question of intent.
Okay. So let's go further to a point you brought up before, which is the ethics of war. Okay. So right now we're looking at this as individuals and individuals. But once we go into the context of a war, which is where we certainly are, right, then the situation must change, and it does change. Let's again look at the Rambam. This is the second side. Laws of, yeah.
She knows she has this illness, but it's going to get worse in time. She says, no, I'm ready to go. I want the baby to be born. What do you do now? Does she have a right to say that? Okay.
That gets, yeah. Rambam, Law of Kings 6:4. This is talking about battles. V'im lo hishlimu. If this nation that we're going to war against does not make peace with us, or they made peace, but they're not going to live according to the 7 mitzvot. Osin imahen milchama. Then we go to battle. V'horgin, and we will kill kol hazicharim hagedolim, all of the adult males. Ubozizin, kol mamonam, the tapam, and will take for spoil. The ain hargin isha. However, women cannot be killed. Velo katan, nor can children, minors. Shenamar, as it says in Devarim Chaf Yudalid, chapter Deuteronomy, chapter 20, verse 14. Rak hanashim ba'atav abayma v'chol she'yeh ba'ir kol shlala tavoz lach. All that which is in the city you can take as spoil, and taf shel zetaf shel zicharim. Children refers to males that are below adult age. So in battle, women and children are not included in these allowances of battle. Okay? However, right, that is, just one second, did I miss something? Yeah.
If the children position physically of the battle, there is no way of not killing them.
Okay. Let's go through some of the sources. Okay. Yeah, Cheryl, yeah?
What about was it Shaul?
That was Amalek.
No. Who was told by Hashem he has to kill everybody.
That was Amalek, and according to Rambam, there too, he called out first for peace. And when they did not agree to peace, then that's what followed. Okay?
And the animals also.
Yes. Va'ach et dimchem, Breshit 9:5. The pasuk says, and also the blood, lenafsho teichem, right? Edrosh, that I will demand, mikol chaya, even from every beast, edroshena, umiyad adam, and from a person, umiyad ish, achiv, edrosh et nefesh ha'adam. A man from his brother, I will edrosh, require a nefesh adam, a reckoning for the human life. This I don't have in English, but the Netziv on this says as follows. Perush, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Eimatai ha'adam ne'enash. When is a person going to be held responsible? B'sha'ah shera'ui linhog ba'achva. Right? It always seems to we mention achiv, his brother. I always say some brother, or chavero, right? Some friend, right? But why are those terms used? B'sha'ah shera'ui linhog ba'achva. That's at a time when when one is meant to be acting with brotherhood. Masha'ein came b'shat milchama. Which is not the case at a time of battle. Ve'et lisno, using the words from Kohelet, Ecclesiastes, a time for hatred. Az et laharog, then it is a time for killing. Ve'ein onesh al zeh klal, and there is no onesh, responsibility, punishment for that. Ki kach nosad ha'olam. That is the way that this world works. And the Rambam again, Laws of Kings 5:1. Ein hamelech nilcham tchila el milchemet mitzvah. A king, the first battle, the priority in terms of any battles is milchemet mitzvah, is a war, a mitzvah war. Ve'ezohi milchemet mitzvah. What is a mitzvah war? Zo milchemet shivat amamim. That's the war against the 7 nations of Canaan. And umilchemet Amalek, and the war against Amalek. ve'ezrat Yisroel miyad tsar sheba alehem. And a war that is fought to help Ezrat Yisrael, to help Israel, miyad, from the hands of a tsar sheba alehem, an enemy which attacks them, right? And that comes up, Leah, I think what you brought up in terms of Iran, right? Or yeah, that when we have this nation or peoples or countries or nations that are coming up against us, at that point we go to battle. And as the Emek Davar said, in battle lives are lost. Very often you have these activists. But how about the beeper, the blessed beepers that we sent to Lebanon, right? So, yeah, but there was a child that got killed. That's sad, right? But the father might have taken into account, by joining Hezbollah, I might be endangering my children also, right? Yes, in war, missiles are being fired by Hezbollah daily. In war, people die. We need to do our best to minimize that. But if, like many of the crazies want, if we're going to tie the hands of every country in protecting their civilians, lest that one of the civilians of the opposing side will die, then basically you can't protect yourself. And you're just going to open yourself up for more and more and more attacks. And lastly, the Shulchan Aruch takes this a step further, and it says as follows. This is code of Jewish law, the laws of Shabbat, interestingly enough, because this is going to spill over in terms of desecrating the Shabbos in order to do certain things. Akum, idolaters, shetsaru al ayarot Yisrael, that have laid siege to Jewish cities. Imbo al iske mammon, if they come for monetary pursuits, Ein mechadaleim et Shabbat, then we will not desecrate the Shabbos to protect ourselves. Our lives are not in danger. Bo al iskei nefashot, but if they came to kill, va'afilu stam, or they haven't clearly indicated what their intents are, yotzim aleim, we go out against them, bichlei zayin, with our weaponry, umechadaleim aleim et Shabbat, and Shabbos observance desecration, we put that aside and we go out in order to battle against them. Ubi'ir hasmucha l'safar, and a city that is by the border, then afilu ba'ala iske tevin v'kash, either they only came for monetary matters, and even minor monetary matters, straw or hay, mechadalim aleim et Shabbat, then we will desecrate the Shabbat, and that the Ramah adds, va'afilu lo bo adayin ela rotzim lavo. Even if they have not come already, but they are preparing to come, right? They haven't shot the missiles yet, but they are gathering the missiles at a place to shoot. They have not yet come, but rotzim lavo, they want to come, they're preparing to come. That is already considered to be full-out, full-time war. And at that point, we certainly need to do our best to minimize what's called the collateral damage. At the same time, as the Netziv pointed out, in a war, it is inescapable. It is inescapable. There will be collateral damage. Certainly, when our enemies are embedding themselves in the civilian population, constantly changing into, or always wearing civilian clothes, keeping their stuff, their weaponry under schools, under mosques, under civilian hospitals, under kids' rooms, right? Under civilian, right? When we took out Nasrallah, right? I think he was 16 stories down underground under a large apartment building. Hey, if that's where you are putting yourself, then you are the one who is endangering all of those civilians. We don't want, that's not our goal. That's not who we're shooting for. We do our best to avoid. But I remember I was amazed when, forget when it was, and during this past year, when, your first priority needs to be not to harm any civilians. Actually, our first priority needs to be to protect our own civilians. After that, we can have a priority not to harm the enemy civilians. But our first priority needs to be to protect our own civilians. Collateral damage, there will be, but we need to do what we need to do to protect ourselves, protect our civilians. And there is a kangaroo court, the ICC. So that is just another thing that we have to deal with in the incredible hypocrisy that we've been seeing in the world around us. Though there have been some shining lights. The new Senate leader, I saw a beautiful clip where he decried all of the delays in getting in selling to Israel, not giving, but selling to Israel what it needs. And his words were, right, the reinforcements are on their way, and our hope and our tefillah is that all of this should lead to there are big things happening in the heavens, and that all of this should lead towards a geula shalema, a complete redemption, and the end of all of this craziness, and a geula shalema b'mheira v'yameinu, speedily in our days. Right? We say speedily in our days because God's time cycle is very, very, very expansive. So we say speedily. We don't want God speedy, right? We want speedily in our days, according to our way of measuring time. Not 1,000 years is like one day. No. In our days, Meher V'Yameinu. Amen. Yes, exactly.
To quote Alan Dershowitz, he says, calling this a kangaroo court gives kangaroos a bad name.
Yeah. Well said.
Rabbi, I got a quick question for you. Can you hear me?
Only kill the men then and not the women?
I have to see the psukim. I think it might have been everyone.
Rabbi, what about friendly fire?
Tragic.
Yeah, it is.
Calamitous.
But they will still be liable in the hands of Hashem.
No, that's an error.
I don't think so. That's a shogeg. That's an onus. Yeah. No, I would not think so. Kathy, good seeing you.
Rabbi, I got a quick question.
Yes, boss.
How is what happened today different than the Dreyfus affair in France?
Well, the difference in France, they actually convicted somebody. Right? Here, it's a court that has no power to do anything. Now, granted, this is going to limit their ability to travel to many countries, which will enforce this arrest warrant, right? But they have, right there, Dreyfus was in the hands of the French and was at their mercy, right? Netanyahu was not in anyone's hands.
No, but I'm saying just the moral aspect of it, everything that you just said.
Yeah.
Take into consideration trying to protect the innocent, all of that good stuff. No matter what Israel does and has been doing for the last decade after decade, it's always the same result.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why does that happen?
Yeah. Why does it happen?
What's with the other side? They're free reign to do anything? I guess so.
Okay, next Thursday we will not be having lunch and learn. I think people are spending time with their families. Thanksgiving next Thursday. So we will not be having lunch and learn next Thursday. We'll resume in 2 weeks' time. Esther, 2 weeks' time we'll resume lunch and learn, not next Thursday. Parsha we can do on Tuesday, yes. Yes, we will do that. Okay. Yeshikoach, everybody.